Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
And welcome in, everybody, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. My name is Patrick Kinney, and today we got a really good show for y'all. So, to get it started, we're going with, obviously, Joe Musgrove's no-hitter, the first no-hitter in San Diego Padres history. Really cool for the hometown kid to get that done for his favorite club, and the club that he happens to play for now. Really good thing for Joe Musgrove's. And then I'm going to give you guys some statistic updates and some standing updates. And then in the third segment, we're going to be going over the injury updates for everybody. That includes like Cody Bellinger, Shohei Ohtani, some other really good players that are going to be out for a little bit here at the beginning of the season. And then in the final segment, I put a poll out on our Twitter account at GSMC Baseball, or _ baseball, excuse me. And the result was that the Reds had the most surprising and most, I would say the most surprising, especially considering last season. But they have the best offense in baseball at the moment. So we're going to be going over sort of comparing and contrasting the two stats from this year and last year. And last year they happened to be the worst team. The worst hitting team to ever make the playoffs, and they ranked it dead last season. So, with that being said, we're just going to get right into it. So, yesterday I'm recording this on April 10th, so April 9th of 2021, Joe Musgrove got his second win of the season as the Padres defeated the Rangers by a score of 3-0. The Padres had 8 hits, no errors, and obviously the 3 runs scored. And the Rangers had no hits, no runs, and 1 error. So, just go through a few of the stats. Trent Grisham went 2 for 4 with a strikeout and a run scored. Justin Profar went 1 for 4 with a strikeout and 1 hit. Manny Machado went 1 for 1 with an RBI and 2 strikeouts. Eric Hosmer went 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Will Myers went 2 for 4 with a run scored and a strikeout as well as an RBI. Cronenworth at second base yesterday went 1 for 4. And then Tommy Pham, Kim, and Tommy Pham and Kim went 0 for 4, and then Kim went 0 for 3. Kim got a walk. And then Caterini, the catcher, went 1 for 3 as well with a strikeout. So that all in total tallies up to 3 runs scored out of 8 hits, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. And the Rangers had 27 at-bats, no hits, no runs scored, no walks, and 10 strikeouts. And so we're just going to go over a few stats for Musgrove's. Musgrove's obviously threw 9 innings, no hits, no earned runs, no walks, and 10 strikeouts. And so just going over to going over his stats, it's kind of really, really interesting. So Musgrove's, it was obviously the first time in Padres history. It was their first ever no-hitter in team history, which is a really cool thing. So Joe Musgrove is obviously right-handed pitcher, and he went to Grossman High School in El Cajon, a suburb of San Diego, and he regularly attended games with his dad and his family, who have been Padres fans since the team was created in 1969. And at Petco Park, he watched guys like Jake Peavy and Chris Young and a whole bunch of other really good players that came through San Diego, when he was growing up. And I think that's just such a cool thing to do. Obviously throwing a no-hitter is just awesome, just in general, but I think it's even more impressive I think it's just even more impressive or more special, I would say. I don't necessarily think impressive, because obviously it's really impressive when you get to no-hit somebody and you get to no-hit a team, but especially when it's a team that is, especially when it's your hometown team, I think that just makes it so much more special. And it's just the perfect storyline. And less than a year ago, yesterday, Victor Carini was with the Cubs, and he caught Alec Mills' no-hitter last season on September of last season. And so he's the first, and this is obviously the first no-hitter since that no-hitter, so he becomes the first catcher in Major League Baseball history to have caught consecutive no-hitters, and he did it on different teams, because last year he was with the Cubs, this year he happens to be with the Padres, and he just happened to help call the second no-hitter in Major League Baseball from last season to this season. I think that is just so cool. It's awesome. Musgroves has called Carini the scientist, and what perfect name for somebody that happened to just catch a second no hitter. That is just amazing. What a cool thing to do, to have. You're always gonna have that if you're Carini. You're I caught the two consecutive no hitters from 2020 and 2021, and I think there are a lot of guys on that team that could throw another no-hitter, like Yu Darvish or Blake Snell or even Chris Paddock. I think that is just pretty amazing, honestly. And Musgroves obviously was, like I said, born 20 miles away from Petco Park in 1992. He was drafted by the Blue Jays 46 overall in 2011. And he was drafted straight out of high school. So, he's still kind of a young guy, and he's also the sixth pitcher since 1990 to throw a no-hitter for a team from the state that he was born in, which, I think that is just obviously amazing. I guess what I'm trying to say, that could be, kind of misheard or whatever. It might be hard to understand what I'm trying to say. But he is the sixth pitcher to throw a no-hitter for a team from the state in which he was born. The other one was Jared Weaver when he threw his for the Angels, Kevin Gross for the Dodgers, Nolan Ryan, he threw two for Texas, the Rangers, then Terry Mulland for for the Phillies, and then David Stewart for Oakland a few years ago as well. And I think that this is just kind of a fun thing for people to hear about. And another fun stat is the Rangers general manager Chris Young, who pitched for the Padres from 2006 to 2010, was just 2 outs away from throwing San Diego's first no-hitter in 2006 against the Pirates. And then Pittsburgh's Joe Ronda broke it up with a solo home run in the ninth inning. Musgroves has now thrown 31 consecutive scoreless innings, dating back to last season, which is a career high for him. And over that time, he's only given up 10 hits, walked 2, and struck out 44. He struck out 10 batters last night, which is pretty amazing, honestly, if you really think about it. He went 9 innings and struck out at least one batter every inning, and that's just pretty amazing. And like I said before, Victor Caratini was the catcher for Musgroves last night, and he also caught the last no-hitter in the bigs with the Cubs against the Brewers in Milwaukee last September in 2020. And Caratini is the first starting catcher, like I said, to catch consecutive no-hitters for different Major League Baseball teams. This is Musgrove's second start with the Padres, which makes him the 8th pitcher in the modern era with a no-hitter in one of his first 2 starts with a new team. And he is the first pitcher to do it since Clay Buchholz in September of 2007, when Buchholz did it with his second start since 2007. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Musgroves, obviously, he went through a ton of water actually yesterday. They said the reports that he drank 11 to 12 water bottles over the course of the game because of the nature of his routine, he didn't give himself a bathroom break. And I know, like, a lot of guys, especially like when you're in the zone like that, so many people and baseball players are just notorious at being just so superstitious that there's a lot of like hidden superstitions in baseball. Like a lot of, like, some people may not be aware that you don't step on the line, you go over it. You try not to step on the line or something bad will happen. You don't change up your routine if something's going good. I've known a few players that have worn the same underwear for every game. If they were on like a hitting streak or they were pitching really well, they wouldn't even wash their underwear. They would just not wash their underwear for like 4 or 5 games because they were just on, and they just couldn't do it to themselves. They were too scared that if they did that, then they weren't going to be able to do anything else. And Musgrove said he had to go so bad in like the 4th or 5th inning, but he just couldn't allow himself to do that. Musgrove's also had his gum before every start. He lines a towel with 9 pieces of bubble gum. And before every inning, or between innings, he'll chew on a piece and then spit it out when going out to the mound. And the quantity of the little pink sugary gum he chomped on let him know how deep into an outing he was going or had gone by. Since he just doesn't, like, obviously he knows the score of the game and stuff like that, but obviously by the end of the game, all 9 of those had disappeared, which is really good. And I mean, Blake Snell also has his own superstitions, and Musgrove said, I saw Blake sitting there in the same position with his feet on the rail, and still, I was like, I wonder if he's moved at all today. After the game, he was like, I didn't move that whole game. And obviously he was doing that because when your teammate is on, you got, or the team is trying to do everything that they can to not talk about the no-hitter, and they're trying to do everything that they can to not be the guy that causes the game to get blown or something like that. Because if you're on the bench and you have a guy that is throwing a no-hitter, and all of a sudden like it's like the 7th or 8th inning, and you're like, and you go up and talk to him, and you haven't gone up and talked to him all game, and you say something about the no-hitter or something or else, and like it is going to upset everybody in the dugout. And if that next inning somebody gets a hit or something happens to Musgroves on the mound or something like that, then everybody on the team is going to be blaming that one person. And it becomes on them. So nobody wants to do that, just because, like, obviously you don't want to be that guy that is the one that changes up your routine. So, and it's a little bit harder for guys that are hitting. I know that when back in high school when I used to play, when we had guys that were throwing like really good, and I was a part of a few teams that almost had no hitters, and when you're playing, it's a lot harder to have a one like a one spot to, or like a one thing that you're doing. Like if you're on the bench, you go in and you are standing at this one spot in the dugout, and you don't move for the rest of the game. But if you're playing, then you're coming off the field, and then you have to go get ready to hit. So you are moving around a lot more. So it's harder if you're like if you're Will Myers and you're going out to right field, and then you come in and you have to get ready to hit, and so it's harder for those kinds of guys to find their like one thing in the dugout that they do, especially because innings change and stuff like that, and you might have like a team where or a time where you are supposed to lead off the inning, and then you get stranded on second or something, so you don't get to go in the dugout and you don't get to do those superstitious kinds of things. But I mean, it's kind of I mean that in general is like the superstitions. I think I should do a segment here in the coming future about about superstitions on baseball players. I think that would be a really fun topic. But Musgroves had one heck of a freaking game yesterday on the 9th, and I mean, San Diego has been tortured by near no-hitters since the infamous curse of Clay Kirby in 1970, when manager Preston Gomez pinch hit for Kirby in the 8th after after 8 no-hit innings. And several Padres pitchers have come close, but nobody has gotten it. And because of how close they've gotten it, the Padres organization has had 31 hitters, and it's pretty amazing that they've come that close. Musgroves obviously couldn't recall any of the San Diego's close calls off the top of his head, but given his fandom, he probably witnessed like a few of those one-hitters. But with the focus now, like with the no-hitters, like that's gone away, obviously the attention is going to fall on the San Diego kid who grew up watching the local team and got to make history. And manager Tingler of the Padres said, "It's as special as it gets for Joe to throw the first no-hitter in organizational history. What do you got to say? It's just a special night." And I couldn't agree with him more. I think that this is just an amazing thing. And so just to recap his stats, Musgroves threw 9 innings, gave up no hits, no runs, no earned runs, no walks, 10 strikeouts. And the reason that it was a no-hitter and not a perfect game was because in the 3rd inning, Musgroves had been perfect, but he hit Joey Gallo in that 3rd inning, and because of that, it's not a perfect game. So it doesn't technically go in as like if you look at the box score, you'd be wondering why Musgroves' game wasn't a no-hitter, and that's because, or why it wasn't a perfect game, and that's just because Musgroves was hit Joey Gallo in the 3rd inning. But it's kind of crazy that the Rangers have had Globe Life Park open for just this season for fans, and it's just the 34th regular season game ever played there, and somebody has already thrown a no-hitter there, and it wasn't a Rangers pitcher. And I mean, like, that is just kind of like, it's kind of amazing, honestly, when you really think about it, because like it sometimes it takes stadiums like years to even come close to getting a no-hitter or even a perfect game, or even close to maybe even a complete game might be close to a year or something like that. So I mean, it's really impressive to I mean, obviously Joe Musgrove deserves to be commended on this for sure, because I mean, it's just such an amazing thing. It doesn't happen too often, so anytime a no-hitter or a perfect game happens, it's just a special occurrence, and obviously we got to talk about it when it happens. So that's going to do it for this segment here in the first segment of today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. In the next segment, we're going to be talking some stats and some standing updates, and we'll be right back in just a few moments.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back into the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Once again, guys, I am sorry about the way that my voice sounds today. I'm starting to lose it a little bit, but I'm trying to get you guys a podcast. So I am a little bit sorry about the way that my voice sounds. But in this segment, we're going to be going over the stats and standing updates for so far on April 10th. And we're just going to we're going to go over the league leaders and stuff, and as well as the standings. So the Baltimore Orioles and Boston Red Sox are tied for first place in the East. It looks like Boston has bounced back from getting swept by Baltimore, and Baltimore is having a surprising season, to say the very least. They're 4-3 right now, so they're 1-3 in their last four, but that's still good enough for first place. Boston being 4-0 in their last four. And then the Yankees and Tampa Bay are tied for third place with a 3-4 record, both one game back of first place in the division. And then Toronto is obviously still hanging in there because it's, we're at most 8 games into the season right now. So Toronto is 3-5, a game and a half back out of first place in the AL East. And then going to the AL Central, Minnesota has the stronghold out of the AL Central with a 5-2 record. They are a game and a half up on the Chicago White Sox, who are 4-4, and as well a game and a half up on the Cleveland Indians, who are 3-3, as well as the Kansas City Royals, who are also 3-3. And then Detroit is 3-4 in last place of the division, just 2 games back right now. But one thing that is interesting in the AL Central is that the run differential category. So Detroit is minus 14 in run differential right now. Kansas City is plus 2. Cleveland is plus 4. Chicago is plus 12, and the Twins are plus 24. Going back to the AL East real quick, Baltimore is minus 2 actually in run differential. This is kind of interesting considering how that they're tied for first place, but I mean that's still not terrible. And then Boston and the Yankees are the only teams that are positive in the run differential category for this division. The Boston Red Sox are plus 8. They've scored 38 runs so far this season, giving up just 30. And the Yankees are plus 5, where they've only given up 25 runs, but they've scored 30. And then Tampa Bay is minus 14. They've given up 47 runs this year, and Toronto is minus 7. They've given up 33. And I think that reflects their record at the moment. They're just not scoring enough runs, and they're giving up way too much. And I think the AL Central is a good call, just because, it's good because I think that while I don't think that Detroit and Kansas City necessarily are going to be that close to winning the division this year, I think that Cleveland, the White Sox, and the Twins are all going to be, battling for this division for quite a while. And then going out to the AL West, you have the Los Angeles Angels and the Houston Astros tied for first place with a 6-2 record. and Houston is plus 27 in run differential right now, and the Angels are plus 9 in run differential right now. And then you go to Seattle and the Rangers. Seattle and the Rangers are both tied for third place with a 3-4 record, both 2.5 games back out of the wild card, and both of those teams are negative, are in the negative teens out in the AL West. It is negative 14 runs for Seattle and minus 10 for the Rangers. And then you look over at Oakland, and they are not having a good season through their first 8 games, or actually first 9 games. They are 2-7, 4.5 back out of the first place and the wild card, and they are getting outscored by a lot. They are currently minus 36 in run differential, which is just kind of absurd, honestly, how bad they're getting beat right now, and it's not great, and they're going to have to turn around soon, especially because a lot of people were picking Oakland to actually end up winning this division, and right now it looks like it's just going to be a 2-man race with Houston and the Angels unless Oakland can kind of get their stuff into gear. Now going out to the NL, you have the Phillies, who are leading the NL East with a record of 5-2. And they're plus 3 in run differential. Then you go and look over at the Mets, who are in second place, just a game and a half back from first, and they are 2-2 so far. They obviously had a bunch of issues between them and the Nationals with COVID-19 protocols, so they're 2-2 so far. And they are just a game and a half back out of first place. They are 1 game back out of the wild card because of their record. And they are minus 3 in run differential right now, and they've scored 16 runs as opposed to the 19 that they've given up. And then in third place in the division is the Atlanta Braves. They are 3-4, just 2 games back out of first place, a game and a half back out of the wild card with a plus 3 run differential. So Atlanta seems to be bouncing back after their rough start to the season, but they seem to be bouncing back pretty nice. And then you have Washington and Miami, who have both won 1 game. Washington has only played 4. They are 1-3 in those 4 games. Miami has played 7. They are 1-6 in those 4 games. Miami is getting outscored by 11 runs. They're not giving up a lot, but they're just not hitting the ball like they need to right now. They've only scored 21 runs as opposed to giving up 32, and that 32 number is pretty respectable, honestly. It's just more that they're just not hitting the ball well enough right now. And Washington is getting outscored by 3 runs so far in the games that they've played, scoring 12 runs, only giving up 15. And then you go out to the NL West, and I'm saving the NL Central because I think I could spend a few more minutes talking about the NL Central, so I want to do them last. But you look at the bottom of the rankings in the NL West, you have Arizona at 2-6 with getting outscored 30 runs scored to 49 given up. That is a negative 19 run differential. You go to Colorado, they're 3-5 in the 8 games that they've played, plus 3 in run differential, which is interesting. They have, but that's mostly, I think, because they played a lot of games at home so far this year. They've only had, at the time of recording this, they have only played 1 away game, and that's San Francisco, and they're in a series against San Francisco right now. And then you go up to third place in the division. You have the San Francisco Giants, who are 4-3, a game and a half back from first place, a half game out of the wild card, and they are a 0 in run differential. They've given up 23 runs, and they've scored 23 runs. And Colorado is 3 games back from first place, 2 games out of the wild card. Arizona is 4 games back from first place and 3 games out of the wild card. And then San Diego, who obviously just got a really good win yesterday against the Rangers with Joe Musgrove's no-hitter. They have a 5-3 record, 1 game back out of first place. They do have one of the wild card spots locked up right now. They are plus 11 in run differential. They've only given up 19 runs this year, and considering how many games they've played, I think that's that's really impressive. They haven't been hitting the ball as well as the Dodgers, but they've still been playing really, really well. The Dodgers are in first place in the division with a 6-2 record. Obviously, first place in their division, like I said. They have scored 45 runs and only given up 29, which is good enough for a plus 16 run differential. And now we're going to go out to the NL Central. And at 1-6 and in last place, 5 games back out of first, is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are minus 27 in run differential at 19 runs scored, 46 given up. Then you go out to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is 3-4 right now in fourth place, 3 games back out of first, 1.5 out of the wild card, and they have they're being outscored by 5 runs so far, 20 runs scored, 25 given up. Then you go out to the Cubs, who are 4-3 in third place, +1 in run differential, which makes sense considering how close the record is to 500. They are 4-3. And have scored 23 runs, 22 given up. Then you go out to St. Louis, who has second place locked up. They are a half game up in the wild card and 1 game back from first place at 5-2. They have given up 31 runs and scored 36, which is good enough for a +5 run differential. They have seemed to bounce back quite a bit, winning their last 4 games after getting roughed up a little bit by the Reds. And here is, I think, the most surprising team in baseball right now. The Cincinnati Reds are 6-1. With an .857 winning percentage. They lost their first game of the year against St. Louis and then have not lost a game since. They have given up 31 runs, but they have scored 63, which is just very impressive to say the very least. They are plus 32 in run differential, which is just, it's just amazing how good that this team is right now. So now we're going to go over a few stats. And just kind of go over who's leading the league. So in OPS leaders, this shouldn't be any surprise to anybody right now, but that's Nicholas Castellanos. And in the last segment, we're going to be going over more about the Reds lineup right now, but Castellanos is a big part of that lineup so far. He's played in all 7 games. He's had 28 at bats. And he has just had one heck of a start to the season. He's leading the league in OPS, which is your average plus slugging, your on-base percentage plus slugging. His on-base percentage right now is a .467, and his slugging is a cool 1,000. So that leads the league with a 1,467 OPS. Then Yerman Mercedes is second in OPS, which is a 1,460. His slugging isn't as good as Nicholas Castellanos, but his on-base percentage is a little bit higher. His on-base percentage at .571, and his slugging percentage is at an .889. Then you have Tyler Naquin of Cincinnati, who I love that he is succeeding so much, especially as a guy who grew up as a Cleveland Indian fan and saw a lot of good things from Tyler Naquin, and Tyler Naquin is just having one heck of a career year this year so far. He is also slugging at a 1,000 percentage and has an on-base percentage at .444. Then in fourth place, you have Mike Trout, who has a OPS of 1,425, a slugging percentage at 857, and an on-base percentage at 568. And then you go down to fifth, and that's Ketel Marte, who is having a great bounce-back year after struggling last year. He looks to be back in his 2019 form. He has an on-base percentage at 500 and an slugging percentage at 846. That's pretty impressive right there, if I do say so myself. His on-base percentage is very high, and his slugging is very good. Obviously, all 5 of those guys are just absolute freaking studs right now. So in batting average, leading is Yerman Mercedes, who is hitting .556. Ketel Marte is hitting in second place at .462 in the 26 at-bats that he has. In third place is Boston's catcher Christian Vazquez, who is hitting .458. And fourth place, you have Aldernon Simmons, who is hitting .450. And then you have Cedric Mullins, who is in fifth place with he is hitting .448 in the 29 at-bats that he has. And I think that's a little bit more impressive than Aldernon Simmons, who's only had 20 at-bats. Obviously, Aldernon Simmons has walked quite a bit more than than Cedric Mullins of Baltimore, but it's still pretty impressive that he's had almost 10 more at bats, and he is right on the heels of Algernon Simmons right now. So I think that's pretty impressive. And then going to on base percentage, the league leader in on base percentage is Brandon Nimmo, the center fielder for the Mets. At second is Algernon Simmons, who has who's just 2 points behind Nimmo. He is getting on base at a rate of 577. So almost out of every 6 at bats, he's getting on base almost 6 times out of 10, which is just nuts. And then Yerman Mercedes is in third with a 571 on base percentage. Mike Trout is in fourth with a 568 on base percentage, and then Juan Soto is in fifth with a 563 on base percentage, which I think is honestly it's more impressive because his average is only 364 right now in his 11 at bats. But obviously, you got to kind of take Juan Soto and national stats with a grain of salt right now, just because they haven't played as many games as everybody else, so their at bats aren't going to be the same. And you got to kind of do the same thing with the Mets as well, because they've only had, they've played in about the same amount of games as the Nationals. But going to hit leaders, Yerman Mercedes has 15, JD Martinez and Cedric Mullins are tied for second with 13, and then Nicholas Castellanos, Mike Trout, Justin Turner, and Ketel Marte are all tied for fourth with 12 hits so far. Your league leader in home runs is Tyler Naquin, who has 5. And then Byron Buxton, Nicholas Castellanos, and Ryan McCann, the second baseman for Colorado, all have 4 home runs and are tied for second. And then Ronald Acuna Jr., Dylan Carlson, Nelson Cruz, Evan Longoria, Nate Lau, Whit Merrifield, Shohei Ohtani, Wilson Ramos, Franmil Reyes, Marcus Semien, Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker, Jared Walsh, and I think I'm missing somebody else, but all of those people are tied for fifth with 3 home runs so far. Going over to pitching stats, your league leader in wins is Connor Brodin of the Philadelphia Phillies, who is 3-0 in the 3 games that he has pitched in. He is not a starter, however. He's only pitched a 3 2/3 of an inning, and he does happen to have a 3-0 record, however. Out of starters, however, it is a Jake Arrieta, who is 2-0 with a 2.25 ERA. He's pitched in 12 innings, given up 13 hits, 3 runs against him, 4 walks, and 9 strikeouts. And then you have Jose Berrios, who is also tied for second, and with a 2-0 record, a 1.54 ERA, 11 2/3 innings pitched, just 5 hits given up, 2 earned runs, 1 home run, 1 hit batter, and 3 walks with his 20 strikeouts. And then you have Joe Musgrove, who's 2-0. He has pitched in 15 innings. He obviously threw a no-hitter last night. His ERA is a cool 0.00. He's only given up 3 hits, only 1 hit batter, and he's struck out 18 in his 2 starts. Then you go down to Trevor Bauer, who is 1-0 with a 4.15 ERA. He's pitched in 13 innings, given up 6 hits, 6 earned runs as well, 3 home runs, 2 hit batters, 3 walks, but he has also struck out 20 batters. That's pretty nuts, honestly, when you really think about it. So real quick, we're going to go just into team pitching and just going to go through the top 5 people or teams in overall ERA. So in 5th place you have the Cubs with a 4-3 record and a 2.95 ERA. In 4th you have the Cleveland Indians, who have a 3-3 record and a 2.94 ERA. Excuse me, I think I said the Cubs had a 2.94 ERA. They have a 2.95 ERA. In 3rd place is the Yankees at 3-4, who have a 2.63 ERA. And then you go up to the Twins. The Twins have a 2.12 ERA with a 5-2 record, and then the Padres got some serious help last night, not giving up any runs, and in their 8 games they have a 1.73 ERA at a 5-3 record. All in total, the Padres have only given up 14 runs in the 73 innings that they played. The Twins, in the 63 2/3 innings that they played, they've given up 15. The Yankees have given up 19 earned runs and 25 runs total. And then the Indians have given up 17 earned runs, and all of those runs have been earned. The Cubs have given up 22 runs, only 21 of them have been earned. And then going over to team hitting, we're just going to go through a little bit, and this is really kind of an interesting thing with the number one team this year so far. In average, it is number 5 Boston Red Sox with a 2.78 ERA. Number 4 the Minnesota Twins hitting 2.82. Number 3 the Astros are hitting 2.82, and the Twins are hitting 2.78. And then the Dodgers are hitting 295 and second place, and in first place the Cincinnati Reds are hitting 310, which is very important to the last segment of today's episode, and we'll get into that in just a second. But before that, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back with the injury update so far of 2021, excuse me.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alrighty, and welcome back into today's third segment. We're going to be going over a few interesting tidbits of injury updates and things. So first off, we're going to start off with Aaron Judge. So Aaron Judge had an oblique soreness, and Aaron Boone didn't even call it an injury. He's just been sidelined for a few days. But he is actually back in the lineup today, April 10th, and he should be good to go, I think, for at least for a few days. The first guy that I really want to talk about is Cody Bellinger. So Cody Bellinger was placed on the 10-day IL with a calf injury, and in the game against the Athletics, he took a spike to his left calf, and so he's going to be placed on the 10-day IL, and he should be back ready to go probably sometime next week. Hopefully, if he is able to go. He just has sort of a contusion in his left calf, and he was taken out of the ninth inning, he was taken out in the ninth inning of this last Monday's game. That was April 5th. So he should be good to go probably around this time next week, with a little bit more time to get back to where he is or where he was. Kind of a thing where he's able to, not be healthy enough to get back out on the field. And then up next is Mitch Moreland. He was held out of the starting lineup for Oakland's game against the Astros in Houston yesterday, which is April 9th. And he's played a little bit more first base recently than maybe they had originally thought of, said Bob Melvin, the manager of the Athletics. He has a significant workload, and he's just tight a little bit, so they gave him the 10th off. Mike Fiers as well for the A's. He has a lumbar strain. He's going to throw 4 innings in a game against the Giants alternate training site with athletic alternate training site players. And then he should be good to go in a few days. Bob Melvin, the manager of the Athletics, said that the veteran right fielder is expected to make 2 starts out there before before rejoining the team in late April. And then the A's also have AJ Puck on the 10-day IL with a strained left bicep this past Thursday, so the 8th, and he is the move is sort of retroactive. He only had a appearance against the Dodgers where he threw 3 1/3 scoreless innings in relief, but he is going to be out for a few days with the strained bicep. And then Trevor Rosenthal as well is going to be out for a long while. He had surgery to remove his first rib in the pec minor release and a scaling release after being diagnosed with severe neurovascular compression. So he was placed on the 68-day IL. And a team return back to the mound is going to be pretty much in doubt. The Athletics signed Rosenthal to be their closer after Liam Hendriks signed with the White Sox in free agency. And then this is just one more thing for the Athletics to have to try and overcome. It's probably unlikely that Rosenthal will be back this season just because he's going to have to rehab and deal with not having a rib, and so it's unlikely that he'll be back before the playoffs. If the Athletics are even able to make the playoffs, I could potentially see him coming back if he gets a little bit of a head start on his rehab assignments and stuff like that, in maybe late September if the Athletics are in a position to potentially make the playoffs, as whether it be a wild card or if they're able to turn things around and potentially make or potentially compete for the division. And then for the Angels, Dexter Fowler, Shohei Ohtani, and Luke Bard are all kind of hurt right now. Dexter Fowler had to be carted off the field after landing awkwardly at second base to beat a throw by Bo Bichette in the second inning on April 9th. And the club announced that Fowler was diagnosed with a left knee contusion, so he'll probably be out for about 10 days or so. Shohei Ohtani is going to have to push back his next start with the Athletics because he has a blister in his middle finger of his pitching hand. Joe Maddon said that after the Angels beat Toronto on April 8th, that Ohtani will serve as the club's designated hitter. He's just nursing a little bit of a blister, Madden said. It's got a lot better, but that's what he's nursing right now. That's it. We want this to be fully well and not an issue this year, so that's why he is not going to be pitching for a few days. And then Luke Bard of the Angels is going to go under season-ending right hip surgery after hip discomfort plagued him since spring training, and the right-handed reliever's estimated recovery is 6 to 8 months, so he's going to be gone for the rest of the year, which is a big hit to the Angels. He's been he was very good for them so far this season, and it's just going to be it's going to be unfortunate that the Angels are going to have to deal with this, especially after having such a good start this year. But fortunately for the Angels, it is still early and they still have a lot of time to figure out what they're gonna what their plan is going forward. Alex Wood of the Giants underwent an ablation procedure to avail some lower back stiffness. He threw 3 scoreless innings in a rehab start at the Giants' alternate training site against players from the Athletics on this past Wednesday on April 7th. He is expected to make at least one more rehab start there before the Giants decide to activate him from the injured list. Julio Teheran for the Tigers was scratched from his scheduled start against the Indians this past Friday after feeling tightness in his tricep during his pregame throwing session. and it will be interesting to see if he will be able to come in and do stuff, and be back to what he was the last time he pitched against the Indians. Because of that, Holland logged 2 2/3 innings in an emergency start, and then Fulmer fanned 5 batters in their relief appearance. So the right-hander was scratched from his start, and then with Tehran out, Derek Holland was the opening game starter. Fun fact about Derek Holland, where I grew up in Ohio, he was from a town that was about, I want to say, 20 minutes or so from my hometown. Every time I see Derek Holland's name out there, I get a little happy for him just to see him do well. And he started the game. He started the series opener, and then took the Indians scoreless in his outing. Tehran might start tomorrow. They might skip him or give him a little bit more rest, kind of a thing. But I wouldn't be too worried if you were a Tigers fan, and I would think that the Tigers are going to be just fine without him for right now, but just a little bit of tightness in his tricep, so they wanted to be safe with Tehran, especially since he is so young and he is one of the Tigers' more top prospects, so they're gonna definitely try and take their time with him to try and get him out and back into what he has been, and what the Tigers hope that he will be. Up next is Pete Fairbanks for the Rays. The Rays lost yet another reliever Friday on April 9th when they had to place Fairbanks on the 10-day DL with a right rotator cuff strain. The club is also without Chaz Rowe with a right shoulder strain, Nick Anderson with a right elbow tear, and then Ryan Sheriff with and he is on the restricted list. The Rays are just the injury bug is running rampant for the Rays in their bullpen right now, and unfortunately for them, that is not the way that they wanted to get started this year. Especially when they have to play in a very tough division that includes the Yankees and apparently the Orioles as well. And I don't know which team is more of a surprise. If it's the Orioles, being one of the best teams in the AL East through the first 8 games or so of the season, or if it's the Reds just absolutely blowing everyone out of the water and haven't lost a game since their very first game against the Cardinals on opening day. And then for the Mariners, you have James Paxton, Evan White, and Jake Flaherty out right now. So according to John Heyman of MLB.com, Tommy John surgery has been recommended for John Paxton after the Mariners placed him on the 10-day injured list with a left forearm strain. Paxton had a very long history of injuries, including a strained left flexor tendon that kind of ruined his 2020 campaign with the Yankees. And if he undergoes the procedure, he's going to miss the rest of this 2021 season, which is not good for him because he signed a 1-year contract with the Mariners. And I was actually, I don't know if you all remember a few episodes of mine ago where we were looking at potential trade deadline people to trade for, and John Paxton was one of the guys on that list that I was really high on and thinking that he was probably going to be one of the guys that is going to get moved. Doesn't really look like it this year because of that injury, unfortunately, for Paxton. And that's really unfortunate, especially because he was having a pretty good spring before this injury, and that's just really, really unfortunate for Paxton, and that's kind of heartbreaking to hear when you know how good Paxton has been, but injury history is not his friend, to say the least. Up next is Evan White. He left Wednesday, April 7th's game with a left quad strain, and he's likely going to avoid the injured list, Scott Service said this past Thursday on April 8th, and he is still being reevaluated as he continues to receive some treatment. Wouldn't be too worried about Evan White getting back out there pretty soon. He's probably just going to have to sit a few days on the bench and not do anything too physical. And then Jake Flowery for the Mariners as well was injured diving in the outfield and was placed on the 10-day DL. Underwent an MRI and was diagnosed with a mild left hamstring strain on Thursday. He's going to be out a little while, but it was better news than what a lot of people were expecting, Servia said. And then for the Blue Jays, Robbie Ray, Nate Pearson, and George Springer are still all out. Springer was on the injured list with a left oblique strain, felt some tightness in his right quad while running bases on Monday. He underwent an MRI, which revealed a low-grade quad strain. Manager Charlie Montoyo said that he doesn't expect the center fielder to be back in the lineup during the current homestand in Florida. By the way, I don't know if anybody or everybody is still aware of this, but the Blue Jays are playing in Florida right now just because the Canadian government is very strict on who they are letting in and out of the country. So unfortunately for the Blue Jays, they don't get to play at home. They have to play in Florida. So right now, they're just kind of they're just trying to be careful. And I mean, low grades can go from low grade to really bad very fast. So they're just trying to be really careful with George Springer. And then Nate Pearson, however, is progressing from his rehab with a right adductor strain, and he threw a bullpen session this past Thursday. And they said they're not going to rush him. It's since he almost got to go through a regular spring training. They've sort of built him up, and now they've got to build him up slowly at his own pace, just like he's getting. They're viewing it as if he's getting like a second spring training, just kind of getting reps in, getting back to where he was, and all that fun stuff. And then Robbie Ray is close to returning onto the mound for the Blue Jays, and almost probably after this current homestand that they have, and he is recovering from a left elbow contusion. And then you have Colton Wong of the Brewers. He made a very emotional return to Busch Stadium on Thursday. But in his third at-bat of the game, he aggravated his left oblique strain, and then Craig Counsell said that the injured list is a possibility for their second baseman. And obviously that is not the way that you want to exit a return to your former club's home stadium. But I think that it's pretty, or that he'll be okay pretty soon. He has they're considering putting him on the injured list. Craig Counsell said, I think the injured list is a possibility, but it's not a sure thing. I think that the best way to frame it is it's a distinct possibility, but we're not definite yet. We're going to have to give him some time and see how he feels when he wakes up on Friday and Saturday. He still has some pretty good strength, which is a very good sign. And then finally, the last guy we're going to cover today is Dellin Bettens of the Mets, excuse me. And Betances was placed on the 10-day injured list this past Thursday, April 8th, because of a right shoulder impingement. He was limited to 15 appearances last year because of a strained right lat, and he reported soreness to the Mets training staff after struggling in his 2021 debut this past Wednesday, April 7th. Luis Rojas said, I know it's the 10-day DL, but we don't know if he's going to be going 10 days or more. It's treatment, then build back up. Right now, it's soreness. He's going to have to rest for a few days and see how he responds after the rest part. And he starts throwing and then gets to treatment and all that. So far there are some very notable names that are going to be out for the rest of the year. And like Paxton, Shohei Ohtani isn't going to be out the rest of the year, but he's going to be out and missing some serious time, on the mound at least. Fortunately for the Angels, they have a good enough roster and pitching rotation that they can afford Shohei Ohtani to sort of get skipped over for a few potential starts. And then you also have guys like Dylan Betances, who's going to be out for a while, and George Springer, who's still on the IL, and Colton Wong, who might get placed on the IL. But I definitely have to say that probably the person that is going to be missed the most is probably Colton Wong. The Brewers are struggling this year, and that is pretty apparent. And Colton Wong is somebody that I think the Brewers can't afford to lose. I think that the Mets can afford to not have Dylan Betances right now, but I think that their bullpen is still good enough to avoid losing him. I think that Shohei Ohtani is still going to be giving the Angels a good enough time, or a good enough job out in as their DH, and I think that the Dodgers are going to be fine without Cody Bellinger for a while. And I just think that without Colton Wong, that it becomes even harder to win games for the Brewers. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back in just a second with the last segment of today's episode. And we just discovered that the Reds can hit the baseball, so we're going to go over that and how they kind of got there in just a second.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And welcome back into the last segment of today's episode. So in this last segment, we're going to be talking about the Reds. So I put out a poll yesterday on our Twitter account at GSMC baseball, or _ baseball, I should say, actually. And the results came back. I put out the poll. It was what team has the best offense so far this year, and the Dodgers and a few other teams got some votes, but the Reds were the overwhelming favorite for that. And it's really interesting because if you look at the 2020 season, the Reds had the worst offense in baseball last year. And I mean, they had the lowest batting average of any team to ever make the playoffs. And granted, it was a weird year last year, so like the Cubs and a few other teams who made the playoffs, they kind of got in just because it was an expanded playoffs, but they ranked dead last in team average last year. And in 2020, the average for the Reds, it was just 212. That was their collective team average. This year, they're currently first place in average through the 7 or 8 games that they played. They're hitting .310 this year. Last year, their leader in average was Mike Moustakis, who played in 44 of the games. He hit .230. And then you also had Joey Votto out of the league leaders, players who averaged. To be considered for league leaders, you have to average 3.1 plate appearances per game. The only guys to do that for the Reds last year were Joey Votto. He hit .226. Nick Castellanos, who hit .225. And then it was also Eugenio Suarez, who hit .202. So out of the players that averaged or that were able to or that qualified for league leaders, they were hovering around the Mendoza line, especially Eugenio Suarez. Now, Suarez did hit 15 bombs last year, and Castellanos hit 14, Jesse Winkler hit 12, and then Joey Votto hit 11, and Moustakis coming out of the top 5 for the Reds last year with 8 home runs in the 44 games that he was able to play. And, I mean, the Reds last year, they just didn't hit the ball very well. Like, the team leader in hits last year was Nick Castellanos. He had 49 hits. And then you go to Joey Votto, who had 42. And then Eugenio Suarez, who had 40. And then the next guy is Shogo Akiyama, who played in 54 of the games last year for the Reds in left field. He hit .245. He also had 38 hits, and that was also his first year in the bigs last year. He came over from the Japanese league, but this year it is a whole different story. They are hitting the ball very, very well so far. Leading the team in hits is Nick Castellanos. He has 12 hits so far. And then in second is Jonathan India. He has 10 hits so far. He's hitting .400. Tucker Barnhart is hitting .444 in his games. And then Mike Moustakis and Tyler Naquin both have 7 hits in the games that they've played. Both of them hitting above .300. Then you have Jesse Winker, who's only played in 3 of the games so far this year, but he's still hitting .545. He's only had 12, not even 12 at bats. He's had 11 at bats, and he's gotten 6 hits and 2 doubles. And then you have Nick Senzel, Tyler Stevenson, and Joey Votto, who all have 5 hits. Tyler Stevenson has played in 4 games. He has 12 at bats, and he's hit 5, and he has 5 hits, obviously. Joey Votto, however, has played in all 7 games, has 30 at bats, and he's just hitting $163. And so there's a few reasons that he's not getting a lot of hits. And he's just kind of getting up there in age, but overall the Reds are doing a great job hitting the ball this year. They just are. They're doing a fantastic job this year. They added Tyler Naquin and also Jonathan India, and those 2 guys are doing just great, just a great job this year so far. It's been pretty impressive how good this team has been and how they've been able to turn it around. And in home runs, Tyler Naquin has hit 5 home runs and is leading the league right now in both home runs and RBIs right now. Their team average so far this year is .310. Like I said, they have 15 total home runs, and they are tied for the league lead in home runs. They are leading the National League alone by by 3 home runs each. The Rockies and the Angels both have 12 home runs, but the Reds have 15. The Astros are leading the league in the American League with 15, and they are 4 home runs up on the Twins and the Blue Jays, who are tied for 5th, and the Giants are also tied for 5th for the league lead in home runs with 11 as well. And I mean, the Reds are they're just doing so good right now. Like offensively, they have the league lead in RBIs right now. They have 60 RBIs, and the next closest team is the Astros, who have 49 RBIs. And I think that's even more impressive because the Astros have played a full game more than the Reds, and they have over 40 at-bats more than the Reds. The Reds have only had 245 at-bats this year, and the Astros have 287. The Astros have out-hit the Reds just a little bit, but the Reds have scored 63 runs this year. They're not leading the league in hits right now. They are behind the Dodgers and the Astros, but considering they have 40 less at-bats than the Dodgers have 285 and 42 less at-bats than the Astros, and they are only 5 hits behind the Astros. The Astros have 81 hits this year. The Reds have 76, and they are just 8 hits behind the Dodgers. I think it's just amazing how good this team is right now at hitting the baseball. Their average is a .310 team average, an on-base percentage of .391, which is also league leading. They're leading the team in slugging with they're leading the league in slugging with a .580 slugging percentage, and their OPS is also a league high at .970. This team is doing so good this year hitting the freaking baseball. It's honestly amazing. And I don't know I really don't know what the real reason is behind it. They didn't really lose too many guys this last year. They still have a really good team this season, and they lost Trevor Bauer, who obviously is going to be, or he's obviously a really good pitcher, and obviously the Reds would have preferred to keep him, but honestly so far they're doing a fantastic job. If you go back and look at their starting lineup so far, Tyler Naquin has led off every game that they've played, and Nicholas Castellanos has played hit in the 2 spot. So their first 2 hitters are 2 of the top 2 players in home run hitting so far. Joey Votto's still been hitting in the 3rd spot. Eugenio Suarez in a cleanup spot. Mike Moustakas he's been playing as well quite a bit. Jesse Winker has led off a few games for him. So far this year, Mike Moustakas is hitting .333 in the 21 plate appearances that he's had so far this year. He hasn't played a lot this year just yet, but he's still doing a great job being just one of their just consistent hitters. Nick Senzel's also having a great year. Jonathan India as well. Tucker Barnhart is starting to hit the ball a little bit better. He's kind of struggled with that in the past, and in fact, a couple years ago when the Marlins were getting rid of JT Realmuto, the Reds were very close to trading for JT Realmuto and giving up Tucker Barnhart. And while I think that probably would have been a better move than to keep Tucker Barnhart if they had been able to get the deal done, and I think that the Reds would be better right now if they had JT Realmuto, I think that having Tucker Barnhart is still just a very good option to have him being there. The Reds are just doing so well this year. It's honestly just so impressive. They haven't lost a game since their very first game of the year. It's so amazing how good that they've been. Obviously they lost, like I said, their first game back on April 1st. And they lost 6-11, and that really was more on just a few errors early in the game by Eugenio Suarez, who was playing his first game at first base, at shortstop. Oh my gosh, what am I talking about right now? But the Reds then turned around and beat the Cardinals, and Adam Wainwright 6-9, and then in the next game, in the final game of the series, they beat the doors off of the Cardinals 12-1, and then in their next game, they beat the Pirates 5-3, and their closest game so far this season. And then they turned around and remembered that they are really good at hitting the baseball this year, and then had 17 hits against the Pirates and 14 runs scored. Like it's pretty amazing. And then the next game they turn around and hang another double-digit number on the Pirates. They gave up 4 runs and 7 hits, but they did score 11 runs on 10 hits. Like there's a reason that the Reds have been this good, are so good this year. And then on April 9th, the last night in the first game against a non-division opponent, they beat the Diamondbacks 6-5, and I mean, they still had a very good time yesterday. They did have to go into extras, and they were up 5-0, but they showed a lot of restraint and won in the 10th inning last night against the Reds, the Diamondbacks, and they out-hit the Diamondbacks by 5. They had 11 hits and 6 runs scored, and then Amir Garrett got his second save of the season last night. Their bullpen is, I think, the biggest reason behind, I would say that they're behind this year and last year is that, obviously they're hitting the ball more, which is obviously the number one option for them, but I think that the most impressive part of the season so far is that their bullpen is not giving up games. And last year and the years past, the Reds have struggled mightily with their bullpen. Their bullpen just hasn't been where where the fans and where the team wanted it to be. My dad is a big Reds fan, and I've heard it from him for quite a while now that the bullpen hasn't been great. But I mean, in this game against the Diamondbacks, yes, the bullpen did kind of give up a little bit of and got into some trouble for sure. They had Mal, start the game for the Reds. He went 4 innings, struck out 6, walked 4, and then obviously left in the 5th inning. And unfortunately for him, he didn't give up any runs. And then Anson came in for the Reds, went 2 innings, struck out 3, didn't give up anything. And then the player who came in next was Cam Bedrazan, who got roughed up quite a bit. Only got through 2/3 of the inning and gave up 3 runs. And then they had to go with Sean Doolittle to get out of that jam. Doolittle gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, didn't let anybody score. And then they had Sims come in, pitch an inning and a third, and he did give up 2 runs and 1 hit as well, but was able to get out of that inning with Perez holding the door, and then Amir Garrett came in and shut the door for the Reds, which was a very, very good thing for the Reds. Very good win for the Reds. First non-division opponent win. And the Reds right now have the best record in baseball because of it. The Reds are doing quite a very good job this year. It's really impressive how good they are. For team pitching, however, the Reds aren't doing great this year. They are tied for first, obviously, in wins, but in ERA, it's they don't have the best team ERA right now. Obviously, the Padres have a sub-2 ERA, but the Reds have a respectable middle-of-the-road ERA. It's at 3.94. They rank literally 15th in the league right now. And since there's only 30 teams in the league, they are literally the halfway point in pitching. And if your team is hitting like this, that's all you really need. You really only need your pitching staff to be average. You don't need them to be necessarily anything that is just super special, and that's going to get you just so much more information. And obviously, Obviously, if your team is, the best team in baseball and you have a dominant pitching staff and you also have just the best offense in baseball, then that's obviously ideal. But that's never the case. Your team is never that good. And that's really just because your team is you can only spend so much on your team, and you really don't know how baseball is going to pan out. The season might end up where the Reds rank 15th in the offense, and their pitching staff ends up number 1. Like, that's just how baseball works sometimes. It's definitely something super, super interesting. And I think that the Reds this year are just going to be just magnificent as a team, and they are. And I will be the first to admit it. I did not expect the Reds to be this good this year, especially after last season, losing the guys that they lost. I didn't think that who they brought in was anything that was just super special. But it seems like that they have sort of righted the ship of the last few seasons, at least so far through their first 7 games. I mean, they're 6-1. They're off to the hottest start in baseball, and there's really nothing I can see in the near future that's going to stop them, unless they just cool off on the bats, which is very possible. It happens all the time in baseball where where a team just goes through a team slump and they are not able to hit the ball as much or as well. And when that happens, they're just going to have to lean on their arms. And fortunately for the Reds, they have really good pitchers like Wade Miley and Sonny Gray and Amir Garrett out of the bullpen, and Tanner Roark, and they just have a very, very good team. And I said Tanner Roark right there, but I meant Sean Doolittle. I was mixing up my former Washington National pitchers there for a second. But that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you guys for bearing with me today. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave a comment on YouTube. Give us feedback so we know how to help y'all out. You follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. Thank you guys for listening. My name's been Patrick Kenny. I hope you guys have a great rest of y'all's day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.